All Might, the #1 pro hero in Japan. Obviously, their fight will begin after a couple other matches with the other students, but it will be a 3 versus 1. You would think it would be pretty, well, on the side of the other heroes, or more specifically, the hero students. But Izuku Midoriya, Katsuki Bakugo, and Melissa Shields will definitely be in for one hell of a fight. This is All Might we're talking about. He may be weaker at this moment, but still, his power is going to exceed far more than what they may be capable of. All 3 of them, including All Might, are sent off into a small city, and their fight is about to begin. The goal is to either go past the gate, all 3 of them basically escape, or cuff All Might, defeating him in battle. Will they be able to do either of these? We'll find out on part 5 of What If Deku had an RPG leveling quirk. Yo, what is good, everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I am back. I'm back with with part 5 of What If Deku had an RPG leveling quirk. Obviously, a brand new part of this series. If you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like, a sub, and a comment down below, all that good stuff. Make sure to check the links in the description below. I'm not going to waste much more of your time, and I would just want to get on with the parts, so let's just get right back into the What If. Let's get it. Izuku, Bakugo, and also Melissa stand there and consider making a small plan, at least the course of action they believe to bring. But Bakugo says that he'll take front charge, and just as they're allowed to go, Bakugo goes storming off at insane speeds. Melissa looks at Izuku, and they both kind of shrug, following suit as they follow Bakugo into battle. Of course, Bakugo wants to fight All Might. Izuku doesn't think this is the best idea, but frankly, with Bakugo just storming into the fight, he's not going to let him go on his own. Bakugo blasts toward All Might and even lands a clean explosion on him before All Might can even react to throw his own punch. But the blast did practically nothing. But just as he thinks that he can counterattack, Melissa pushes Bakugo out of the way, and Izuku gets right behind All Might, using 10 times his strength and using the aura that he's basically almost mastered at this point. He grabs All Might from behind and suplexes him on his back. Melissa follows up by kicking All Might in the face using 10% of One For All. Immediately, Izuku follows up and tries to throw All Might out of building, but his arm is grabbed and he gets flipped on his back himself and slammed on the ground. Bakugo sees this as basically a chance to capitalize, and he blasts All Might in the face as Melissa follows up with a flurry of punches. All Might begins to get overwhelmed slowly but surely by the speed of not only these future heroes, but also the kind of reckless coordination they're going by at the moment. Nonetheless, though, All Might gathers his footing and basically blasts them all away. Izuku is able to regain exactly what he wants to do and begins to dash forward at All Might at insane speeds. It seems like he's running faster than the eye can even keep up with. Izuku is dashing from one point to another, just distracting All Might. This allows for the rest of his team to gather distance and get right in front of All Might for basically a team attack. Bakugo lines up a condensed blast from his hands. As it blasts towards All Might, though, Melissa follows up and grabs All Might from behind, making sure that he can't move. Izuku would follow up and immediately kick All Might's head back toward the ground as the blast would land right on All Might's side. Without them knowing anything, frankly, at all, it seems like they just hurt All Might extremely bad. This allows them to cuff All Might, but they're confused as how that one attack that shouldn't have put him out did way more damage than it should have. They begin to help All Might up and actually help him to recovery girls, but All Might explains exactly what happened, that there is a wound that he has exactly where they hit him. They apologize, but he says that it's not like they knew, and even if they did, the best choice of action would be to focus on the weakness of the opponent. They obviously feel bad though. They didn't mean to actually hurt him that badly. They didn't think they would be able to. But nonetheless, they show their success and they're obviously allowed and pass the final exam. But eventually it would be obviously revealed that Aizawa would have let everybody go no matter what. But there will be some extra classes for those people that didn't pass normally. After some time would pass, their next mission would be at the forest training camp. They would head over on the bus and eventually stop at a nearby cliff, an overhang that looked extremely nice. Izuku was watching out and looking around, and he realized there must be a reason why they're here, in which that reason would eventually come up. The Wild Pussycats would show themselves and begin speaking with everybody. They introduce each other and so on and so forth, eventually leading to, well, the Class 1B bus going right by them. They begin to get concerned, and let's just say the mountain begins to change very rapidly, and they all get tossed off in an instant. A new training is about to begin. Izuku and his entire class, Class 1A, is going to have to fight through monsters throughout the entirety of the forest. Luckily, with powerhouses like Bakugo, Izuku, and Melissa, and various others in Class 1A, this shouldn't be too much trouble. They blast through the monsters with relative ease, and Izuku tries out various techniques that he's not 100% sure on using at this moment. He begins using his reverse-like ability. His reverse-like ability is more of a distance and range attack. He tried to use this against the Nomu, and even saw some success with Kurogiri, which is something definitely to think about in the future. But nonetheless, he uses these reverse attacks to basically degrade these monsters instantaneously, and he's not even using it at a really high level. Being able to blast these monsters into practical dust and just leave them as rubble entirely is extremely beneficial for him, at least, and they just make their way through the forest at a pretty fast rate. When they arrive, the teachers and also the Wild Pussycats are pretty impressed about how fast they got through. Obviously, Izuku being a main factor of that, but nonetheless, they did all get through together, and they'll be able to eat some dinner, get cleaned up, and all that good stuff. Izuku would see a little kid, and his name is actually Koda. He would walk over toward Koda and basically introduce himself, about to ask Koda about what he's doing there and basically who he is exactly. But as Izuku is about to ask this, he gets punched in the nuts. Well, unfortunate for Izuku, because this really hurt, and Izuku is going to be basically walking with a limp for the rest of the day. He would eventually have dinner with Melissa, Bakugo, and all of them, all of his classmates, and eventually they'd head to bed. But that next morning, the true training would finally begin, and Aizawa would go over everything that he wants individual students to work on. Melissa is going to start sparring with some of the people that are there, and Izuku personally needs to work on his reverse type of warrior mage magic. Aizawa has no idea how that even works, but that magic, but also Aizawa's little Quirk copy thing that he has, are two crucial things that he feels, if he gets a grip on, would be extremely beneficial for all of them. Izuku agrees on this and begins to work on this reverse warrior magic that he's come up with. It's not a multiplier on his strength anymore, it seems to be a multiplier or a reverse multiplier on everybody else's, meaning that he might be able to get rid of Quirks using this technique, but without extreme control over it, he actually has to be relatively close. And he saw what happened when he wasn't exactly close to the enemy. He had to use an intense amount of power around it, and when he used it, the Nomu may have been defeated and basically stripped of all the quirks. But when he did, it basically destroyed him, knocked him out for multiple days, and it frankly just destroyed his body entirely. But now that he can slowly but surely learn how to use it more and more, this will definitely become beneficial. He continues to do this over and over and over again, trying to maintain this at a regular rate, as if it became a natural state of his body. Throughout the entire day, he'd do this and he'd exhaust himself so much. He'd continue more and more until finally night would come. When night would come, they'd have dinner, eat dinner, relax, and do all the normal stuff they would end up doing, and they would repeat the same process the next day. But just when they were going to have a little bit of fun, they were going to have some downtime and have a little bit of kind of like a hide and seek or a test of strength in the forest, everything seemed to be odd. Izuku began to sense something. He began to feel something odd, and all he saw in his quest log was round 2. He didn't know what it meant, but quickly he would realize something. Koda's not there. Koda's actually somewhere else. He saw him walk away earlier. he tells Melissa that he's going to run after him, and that's what he does. He jumps over there and actually brings him food initially just to make sure that he's calm and safe, but Izuku knows that something's amiss. He gives him the food, and Izuku begins talking to him, saying that they need to go back to the camp. But Kota refuses, saying that he sounds ridiculous, but Izuku doesn't want to alarm him. That's until a deep, terrifying voice begins to speak to them, telling Izuku that it would have been best if he just grabbed the boy and ran, but now they're both gonna die on this hill. Izuku turns and tells Kota to get behind him, that he can handle this, that there's nothing to worry about. Muscular disagrees though, saying that there is a lot to worry about. Muscular charges in at Izuku, but Izuku is able to slide under his legs and trip him up a little bit. He tells Kota to run down the hill, and luckily Kota obliges, but he doesn't fully run down, he just goes down enough to hide. He wants to make sure that Izuku doesn't die in this fit, and if he does, he needs to know what actually happened. So Kota hides while Muscular and Izuku begin their all-out brawl. They begin to go back and forth, and Muscular says that it's honestly pretty beneficial that he found him first, because, well, they've been looking for him. Well, also Katsuki Bakugo, but this will work out as well. Izuku ignores the comments that Muscular's making and lands a blow straight to his chest. Not doing that much damage, but he ramps up his strength multiplier all the way up to 15 times, obliterating part of his chest, and he picks up Muscular and slams him to the ground. Muscular, kind of staggered, he reverses the strength all the way back into what he's been working on, that warrior mage like reverse magic, and he begins to grab Muscular by the shoulders. His strength begins to get stripped away from him, and Muscular begins to panic, kicking Izuku off of him, but Izuku has already sapped him of so much strength. Muscular is far weaker now than he would be, any time before. Muscular tries to pull out anything he possibly can, but realizes that this fight is already over. That he may have fallen too far behind, and whatever he did, whatever the kid figured out, he's far more progressed than they possibly would imagined. Izuku would land a clean blow using a kick to the back of his head, and eventually would knock out Muscular as he begins to pant, gasping for air. Izuku is extremely tired. He's been training this technique all day long, and the entirety of yesterday as well, and having to fight someone that strong right after he did all that training, let's just say it wasn't the most beneficial thing for his current cardiovascular health. Yes, maybe in the long run he'll feel pretty good in his stamina, but right now he's extremely tired. Nonetheless though, he begins to walk down the area after he basically captures Muscular in a certain area to basically keep him there for a while. He sees Kota and he picks him up, telling him that he should have really ran away, but nonetheless Izuku begins to take off. He runs into Aizawa and he gives Aizawa Kota. Eventually they would head off, but somehow they would part away. Izuku would try and help other people basically after being separated from Aizawa, but after some time would pass, Izuku would end up getting captured. He would get put in a small little marble-like gumball, and it seems like Bakugo Katsuki had the same treatment. Melissa herself tried to save him, as both of them would appear as he'd watch himself and Bakugo go through a portal. Eventually they'd wake up strapped to two chairs, and Bakugo would be the only one treated with decency, because they know Izuku is no villain. Izuku just has extreme power that they want. They tell Bakugo he obviously doesn't like this Izuku guy, so how about he joins them, and then he can maybe have his power. Bakugo hears this and looks at Izuku and tells them to untie him, to basically get him out of the shackles that they have him in, and of course they oblige. But just as they think Bakugo might have taken the bait, Bakugo looks toward Izuku, blasting off his cuffs, and immediately the tandem are free. Bakugo regards Izuku, saying that he would never have taken some dumbass shortcut like that, and he's ready for a fight. Izuku agrees, and he's ready for a fight as well. The other villains say that there is no getting out of this scenario, that the heroes haven't found them for the last 12 to 18 hours. You think they're gonna find them now? Just as they're saying this, though, there's a knock on the door. The knock on the door says that they're here for pizza. But it's not pizza, it's the Pro Heroes. The Pro Heroes have finally arrived, and when that door gets punched open, it's Edgeshot. And various other heroes are there as well. Gran Torino, All Might himself, and various others are bombarding the villains. Izuku and Bakugo are somehow able to get out, but just as they escape the building, this goo begins to surround them both, and they're teleported to the center of the city. They look up and they can feel the pressure alone coming from one man, from one person. All for One. All for One himself is standing in front of them, putting his arms out wide, telling them that it's now over, that they will work for him or die. Just as they say that, or he says this though, All Might lands a clean punch on All for One's face, sending him toward a mountain. He tells Bakugo and Izuku nod toward each other and make a break for it, trying to leave, but the League of Villains are hot on their trail and surround them both. Izuku realizes that there's only really one way out, and he has an idea, but it's going to be a risk. He tells Bakugo that he doesn't really understand Bakugo's quirk to a fullest extent. How hard does he focus in terms of making his explosions? Bakugo explains that it's second nature. If he wants the pure explosions to actually happen, he needs to feel the same way, like it's his quirk. You need to think of it as if it was an actual quirk and not some magical spell that you copied it with. Izuku, hearing this, realizes why he's had so much struggle with not only his speed enhancement quirk, Aizawa's quirk, and also his Bakugo's, is because he'd been taking it as if, well, it's just magic, a magic copy. No, it's not just a copy, it's a carbon copy. It's a perfect copy. Izuku, realizing this now, grabs Bakugo by the shoulder and tells him that they need to use their explosions at the same time. They can launch out of here instantly and they should be able to leave. And obviously Bakugo is all for it. Immediately, Izuku grabs him by the wrist and tells him to go right now. They both explode at the same time, and it sends them so high into the air that you practically can't see them at all. Izuku then grabs onto Bakugo's shoulder as Bakugo himself decides to take the lead and blast them the rest of the way out of there. Luckily, they were able to escape, but let's just say they were pretty high up, so they come crashing down onto a building pretty hard, and it's extremely hard to slow down when he's trying to carry Izuku as well. They land on a building though right by a giant screen. The giant screen is currently playing, and they're watching as All Might and All for One are going at it. Izuku wishes that they were still there, maybe somehow to help, but frankly, it doesn't look like it's even the case. It doesn't even look like it's possible. But to be fair, just as long as All Might can keep up with All for One, the other heroes might be able to support in some way possible. A lot of time would pass, and the fight would conclude with All Might himself being out of his big form and pointing toward the camera. The defeat of All for One was inevitable. He points toward the camera saying that you are next. Many of these people don't understand what he meant. Maybe he was talking about future heroes. Maybe he was talking about the villains that think that they can still fight. But no, that's not who they were talking, or who he was talking about. He was talking about, well, Melissa, Izuku, Bakugo, and far many others that are ready to fight and take front center stage and become the new symbol of pieces. I don't know. Maybe they'll be able to do it, maybe they won't. But nonetheless, the fall of All Might, or at least the end of All Might, is something that everybody will mourn for a while. He may not be dead, but his power seems to be gone entirely. So when all of them go back to school, they realize how much that actually would affect everybody. All Might would still be there though, helping people out, helping people train the best he possibly can. This would lead them into training, making super moves, doing anything they possibly can. Izuku would finally learn how to actually use the quirks that he carbon copied. Now they're part of him. They're not just someone else's powers, they're actually his powers now. He learns how to combo them up with each other, but more specifically using his reverse warrior mage mana or energy in combination of Aizawa's quirk. After some time of training, something would get revealed. Their provisional hero licensing exam would be right on the way. Something that all of them would be excited for, because it would be a chance for all of them to become true heroes. Melissa and Izuku would speak about what they would do and where they would go for agencies if they got their provisional hero licensing exam or their license. And obviously Bakugo would barge in slightly, saying that if they're saying ifs, they won't be getting it. Obviously he's just being a Bakugo, and he walks away as Melissa and Izuku kind of laugh at the reaction they got from him. Of course, they don't take him as seriously. I mean, why would you? He's basically a Pomeranian. But nonetheless, they're ready for this next step. And when they head over to the provisional hero licensing exam, everyone seems buddy-buddy. But they know that they have a large target on their back, and when the first event would start, that would become extremely prevalent. And that is a wrap for part 5 of What If Deku Had an RPG Leveling Quirk. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, sub, and a comment down below, all that good stuff. I think this either has 1 more part or 2 more parts. I haven't really decided yet. Depends on how long I want to make that final part. So if I want to split it in half, it'll probably be like 2 20-minute parts. But if I want like 1 longer part, then it'll probably be 1 like 40-minute part. But we'll see. I haven't decided yet. But nonetheless, I hope y'all enjoyed. And if you did, like I said, leave a like, sub, and a comment down below. And I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.
I don't wanna waste what's left.